Red handcuffs and a Cartier diamond-studded bracelet. Lindsay Shiver is surely a study in contradictions. Lindsay showed up makeup-free and she looks so different in her mugshot. She actually looks better and younger to me in her booking photo. She looks so much different than her Instagram photos, but many people think she kind of wears a permanent smirk. She also wore an ankle monitor in contrast to her very expensive golden bracelet. So it turns out they weren't golden handcuffs, but her diamond-studded $11,900 bracelet, Cartier bracelet, the Love bracelet, is handcuffs of sorts, portraying her as a slave to money and material things in my mind. So that bracelet could not be removed when Lindsay was in jail without some kind of special screwdriver. So now I'm going back through her photos and noticing in all of Lindsay's photos and her videos where she wore that diamond-studded bracelet in the past. Ironically, it is a design that is rumored to have been based on medieval chastity belts, which men would lock their wives into when they went to war so the wives would remain pure. I'm wondering if her beleaguered husband, Robert Shiver, was the one who bought her that expensive bracelet. I would never want to wear something semi-permanent like that, any jewelry that you can't take off. The Cartier Love bracelet was nicknamed a slave bracelet, which is basically stuck to you forever and can't be removed unless you have the special screwdriver. That's why hospitals in New York keep one on hand. But apparently the jail in the Bahamas did not have one. A source told DailyMail.com that Lindsay had been wearing her Cartier bracelet the entire time she was incarcerated because the guards couldn't find any sort of key or tool to remove it. Let's talk about the real day that Lindsay was set free. Lindsay was not released from jail on Tuesday because she had not yet, at that point, shown proof of her residency in the Bahamas. But during a hearing on Wednesday, August 10th, Lindsay's lawyer, Cassie Bethel, I think Bethel is a common name down there, Cassie Bethel presented the court with a copy of a lease agreement and asked that Lindsay be permitted to check in at the Cable Beach police station. Lindsay's lawyer said she will live in the island's Cable Beach neighborhood after surrendering her passport to a U.S. Embassy representative in the courthouse who was present and accounted for to take custody of the passport. From what I hear and what I've seen, Cable Beach is not too shabby. There's a resort there, and Lindsay having a lease agreement now somewhere in Cable Beach allowed her to be sprung. And speaking of sprung, Lindsay truly does seem to be obsessed with her younger boyfriend.
On the way into the courthouse, it was quite interesting because he rode with the other co-defendant. Yes, they share an attorney and they're all charged together as co-conspirators, but both he and Terrence Bethel, the alleged lover, were in the back seat of this car. They waited quite some time for Lindsay to make her entrance. When all the media was swarming Lindsay as she walked into the courthouse, that's when they kind of snuck in. But once they were inside, no cameras were allowed in this courthouse, and they all had to sit together. He lowered his mask, the alleged hitman, Farron Newbold, and he did whisper to the media in the front row, "Who are you with? I'm interested. Who's covering the case?" As for Terrence Bethel, he was spending his time locking eyes with his lover, the alleged lover, Lindsay Shiver, and they were touching each other at times. She was giggling. They were looking into each other's eyes. They were all in court today, not speaking except for with their attorneys, whispering with each other, which they were allowed to do, and then answering the court saying, "Yes, ma'am," "No, ma'am." And then after court, I was able to meet up with Terrence Bethel as he was walking to his car. I again was asking questions, especially given the fact that he says that he's still in love with Lindsay and he would never try to hurt Robert. That's been reported. So I asked him about it. Take a listen. Do you still love Lindsay? What were you guys saying in court today? Would you ever want to hurt Robert, or is this all just accusations with no... Do you have any comment? So again, they were already released with ankle monitors. Both the co-defendants with $20,000 bond each. That happened a few days ago. And as I reported at the top of this report, she was released earlier just a few moments ago with an ankle monitor and $100,000 bond.
According to Court TV, Lindsay was locking eyes with Terrence Bethel in court on Wednesday and even touching him, brushing shoulders with him as they entered the courtroom. Man, do I wish the Bahamas allowed cameras in the courtroom for this case. Quote, she also exchanged looks and whispered with her co-defendants, who all sat together in a box with bars at the center of the courtroom. So it's a little different setup than we're used to in the States. Farron Newbold Jr., meanwhile, he pulled down his mask and he turned around to the media and he was asking in a quiet voice what organizations they were with per Court TV. So I'm wondering, is he liking the attention? Does he want to see, oh, is it the Daily Mail? Is it the Independent? Or do we have any Japanese, journalists here? But after all, Lindsay probably had not seen her lover since they strolled together in the Nassau airport during their transport to their arraignment on Friday, July 28th. No wonder they were all lovey-dovey. Indeed, Bahamas Court News says that Lindsay was released on $100,000 cash bail on Wednesday, and the publication said that Lindsay, Terrence, and Farron spoke to each other as they sat in the prisoner's dock. The first time, indeed, they were together after being remanded to prison on July 28th. And again, this Bahamas publication is insisting that the accused were granted emergency bail on August 1st after the chief prosecutor withdrew an initial objection to their release after she spoke with their intended target. So she must have spoken to Robert. Will Lindsay sneak away and, not stick with the conditions of her bail and see her lover?
But there is bars, and that's where the co-defendants and she had sat listening to the judge and listening to prosecutors. It was Terrence Bethel, her alleged lover, who was right next to her, and Farron Newbold, who wore a mask. He pulled down the mask one time, looked out at the gallery full of media, and asked who everybody was with. Quite interested in the international coverage there. Meanwhile, all three facing charges in the murder for hire plot to kill Lindsay's husband, Robert. They were arrested last month after the two were in the middle of a bitter custody battle and divorce, Lindsay and her husband, Robert, in Georgia. Again, outside of the courthouse, many times over the last 2 days, I have tried to get Lindsay's attention, asking her questions if she has a message for Robert and her three young boys there in Georgia. Take a listen. Lindsay, you want to say anything about the allegations? Any message to Robert or the boys?
You hired a hitman. You tried to hire a hitman to kill your husband, Robert.
No comment from the former pageant queen, TikTok star, woman who was a cheerleader and loved all the attention. Nowadays, she's holding a manila folder in front of her face, not wanting to be on international news. Again, she was just released moments ago. Her address not disclosed, but she will be staying close by.
According to Bahamas Court News, attorney Owen Wells told the court that Newbold and Bethel needed new charging devices for their ankle monitors. So I'm wondering, are their ankle devices not working already? In certain crime cases, even in the U.S., those things malfunction. All of the accused are banned from coming within 100 feet of Robert Shiver. However, visits with Lindsay and her three sons, who are only 4, 6, and 10, will be facilitated by their maternal grandmother. So Lindsay's mom, I guess if she chooses, could fly the boys down and visit with Lindsay. But Lindsay's not supposed to speak with Terrence whilst they're out on bail. But I'm wondering if the illicit lovers won't find a way to sneak and see one another on the island. It's shocking to some people that Lindsay wouldn't seem, I guess, more repentant, and that she's giggling and laughing and, kikiing with her lover in court. A court clerk told Court TV that the bail conditions are as follows. Lindsay can't have contact with the other two defendants, she can't have contact with her husband, and she cannot contact any of the prosecution witnesses, but she is permitted to speak with her three sons. So I wonder if she will FaceTime them or see them in person. What's the deal? Lindsay is the same woman who wrote on May 1st, 2023, what it's like being a stay-at-home mom. Pure joy, getting to pour into my kids in small, everyday ways. This is the same woman who was locking eyes with her boyfriend, but I'm not sure how much Lindsay has or has not been grieving seeing her 3 boys. She didn't appear to be wearing a wedding ring on those immaculately manicured fingers, but that Cartier bracelet wasn't going anywhere. And a deeper look into the lawyers and the trauma therapists and the life coaches that Lindsay follows on Instagram, it makes us all wonder exactly what was Lindsay going through in her marriage. And we have no updates on the divorce case yet. I just checked earlier today. I do see sort of a sadness in her eyes when I look back through other photos. As Lindsay was led inside Nassau Supreme Court, she had glanced nervously around and she saw Terrence, and he responded to her with a nod of the head. It's a different setup than we're used to seeing in U.S. courtrooms. It's like the British setup when you see it in movies. All 3 were ushered into a caged wooden dock. It's kind of more theatrical to me because they're like in the center of the room, it looks. Terrence took the seat next to Lindsay with Newbold sitting to his other side, and according to reporters, all 3 of them exchanged warm smiles and they whispered to one another. Prosecutor Cordell Frazier referred to the American woman as Lindsay Shirley Shiver and told the court she had paid her $100,000 cash bail and provided copies of the lease agreement for a place where she can stay while in the Bahamas while awaiting trial. So I'm wondering, how fancy is this Cable Beach place? They have some really nice homes there. I don't know how much her parents sprung for or were able to find. Judge Cheryl Grant Thompson told Lindsay she would have to surrender her passport to the U.S. Embassy official, but she could apply to have it returned on a, quote, case-by-case basis. So I guess it really matters where this case goes. Lindsay will have to report to a police station 3 times a week, abide by her 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. curfew, and can't go again within 100 feet of her husband. The judge told Lindsay, "I'm ordering your immediate release as all of the requirements have been satisfied." So Lindsay didn't say anything except okay in a timid voice and said nothing more throughout the hearing that only lasted about 10 minutes. Now, some folks don't agree with Lindsay being released on bail. Some people think she should have had to stay and suffer it out in that horrible Fox Hill prison. But now that Lindsay's spent those grueling 19 days and nights in Nassau's Fox Hill prison, which is notorious for overcrowding and its violence and horrible conditions, some people are like, she should have stayed there. She should have remained in jail until her trial. Others are likely glad she's out. So instead, on Tuesday, August 8th, Lindsay had to leave the neighboring police station only minutes after arriving. After she had her GPS ankle tag fitted, she popped into a waiting vehicle and took off. At that point, she only had 1 more night in jail. The 36-year-old Lindsay did respond to a DailyMail.com reporter. She mouthed the word no when the reporter asked her, did you hire a hitman to try and get rid of Robert, the father of your 3 boys, husband, who's going through this contentious divorce with you? So she's apparently saying no, and that must be her defense in court. It was a much longer time when Lindsay had to spend 6 hours inside a sweltering, hot Nassau police station attempting to secure her release on the $100,000 bail. I mean, that is a lot in cash to come up with. But apparently she did it, and Lindsay was led out again in handcuffs and driven back previously to that harsh Fox Hill prison on her final night there, after the judge ordered she spend 1 more night there Tuesday night ahead of her Wednesday bail hearing when she was sprung and free. But on Tuesday, when she emerged around 5 p.m., she was looking drained and I guess anxious, and she was trying to hold this manila envelope in front of her face. But she briefly, I guess, was able to say no to that reporter's question before she was placed back in the corrections van. Will we see Lindsay again before October 5th? Chances are we will. She was fitted with her ankle monitor, but she still has to report to the Cable Beach police station in Nassau every Monday, Wednesday, Friday before 6 p.m., so I'm sure people will grab video of her. She must remain in Nassau until her October 5th court date. If there's any travel that has to happen, she has to get permission. She has her curfew. She has to be in her residence every evening until 8 p.m. until 6 a.m. The folks on Facebook are wondering, did she have some type of mental break? Is she in some type of delusional state, including homicidal ideation? Luke 12:6-7. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies? Yet not one of them is forgotten by God. Indeed, the very hairs on your head are all numbered. Don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. Yes, and Robert Shiver's life was worth more than many sparrows, and thank God for protecting him and not leaving those boys fatherless, allowing the boys to have their father, most likely now to be raised by their dad and their grandparents, because we don't know how long Lindsay is going to be sent away. Lindsay might spend the rest of her natural life in the Bahamas, when you think about it, if she is found guilty. And just imagine that, those 3 little boys at the center of this horrible, horrible would-be alleged crime. Will Lindsay ever be able to drop the scales from her eyes? I don't know if this is really love between Lindsay and Terrence. Maybe it is. Who am I to say what's real love and what's not? If it is, it's a messy beginning, and I'm sure none of them think prison is worth it. Now, Terrence could really be a guy who fell for Lindsay and they have deep feelings for each other, and it's just a trick. I can't help but say it's just a trick of Satan when it's like, here, wouldn't this person, this woman, even if she went through a hard time in her marriage, I don't know if she did, but we know what she's alleged in the divorce papers. Even if she did go through this traumatic time, was bored, was lonely, that's on the kind end, giving her all this grace to think about why she would concoct such an evil plot. Even if she was going through all of that and was vulnerable and she fell for Terrence's charms, none of it makes for a great beginning or start to a relationship. On the worst end, was Lindsay just this narcissistic woman who got tired of being a stay-at-home mom to 3 young boys and just wanted a more exciting life, and damn anyone who got in her way? Was that her thinking? Either way, if prosecutors are able to prove that Lindsay indeed concocted this hit against her husband, dad to her 3 boys, well, that's not going to be good for Lindsay or her co-conspirators. I mean, imagine the time they're thinking. But right now, maybe they're just thinking of, where they're still in the glow of love. I'm not sure how long these two have been seeing each other. I know Robert did indeed find out in February. He hired the PI, he found out about the affair, but we don't know how long Terrence and Lindsay have actually been seeing each other. It could range anywhere from months to a year and a half, like some rumors claim. So we don't know. But during that time, if there's all this salacious lovemaking, and it can be so confusing, and if Terrence seems so much nicer to Lindsay and attentive and whatever, like, oh, you're lovely, you're beautiful, or whatever was happening, it can feel like, oh, this is true love and this is what I've been missing. In a perfect world or whatever, you can say, yeah, okay, fine, Terrence, you were being kind to her or whatever. But then, of course, there's always the rumors about Terrence's activities. Was he involved in any illicit dealings? You think about that movie with Tom Cruise, Cocktails, or you think about, these movies where you've seen the bartenders, and of course they're human beings, they're real, but you see these vacationers go off and lose their minds, and you want to live somewhere permanently in this drunken land of make-believe. And is that what Lindsay thought she could do all this time, and fall for Terrence? And what if he is a bad boy type? Was he the type who targeted women like Lindsay, like a lot of women there coming to that Baker's Bay likely have a lot of money? Did Lindsay become more attractive to Terrence because of the accoutrements that surrounded her? The gold diamond bracelets, the private jet, the money. Did he see dollar signs? All of that combined, did that make the love more strong? Did that make Lindsay more attractive to him? Did he see a big payday in Lindsay? Of course, a person would look really attractive, an older woman who's access to millions and millions of dollars, and if she starts, slowly saying, my husband's mean, my husband's this, my husband's that, I hate my husband and all that, if only he were gone and we could run off and live wherever you want to live, Terrence, where do you want to be, because we'll have all this money. And did she think Terrence would be there and helping her raise the boys, or did she plan to have her parents or in-laws raised the boys or nannies a lot of the time where she could just run off and experience freedom. You know, it reminds me of the Chris Watts case too, where he's married to Shanann Watts and everything was fine at first, and he has these 2 girls, a 3rd baby on the way, and he gets to experience 6 weeks of freedom with Nicole Kessinger, and all of a sudden that freedom felt so good to him that he was able to listen to the voice of evil and tell him, oh, get rid of your family, you know, you can go off with Nikki and go have a great time, live the life you've always wanted. Is that what Lindsay was trying to do? If she really did come up with this alleged murder plot, what broke in her brain or her mind or her spirit, or just emerged? Was it always in there? Was this evil always in there? Or did something shift where she literally thought, this is a good idea. You know, I really like this younger guy. I really love my husband's money. So how about I just get my husband out of the picture? That never works. Plotting evil never works. It just never would have worked. Let's keep up with this case, and again, many others I am also following. So now that this one might be at a breaking point, perhaps until October 5th. I'm not sure how long the press will stay in the Bahamas and people will be capturing videos of the trio. You know, the guys were wearing their masks and covering up, and they have to do their check-ins. I guess we'll see October 5th what happens on that date. And I'm not sure how long in the Bahamas it takes cases to make it to trial. Does it take years like it can take in the States or not? We'll learn. But for now, those are the latest updates. Thank you for always watching.